Hey, peace and blessings. It's your brother Sorry back with another one. I just came to kind of do another one on the 48 laws of power. I'm gonna get into like the second law. I don't know how many of these I'll do. I don't know if we're gonna make it through all 48 laws. I might do 10 of them or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, just want to kind of get into that. Okay, what I want to do is just a brief recap of what we went over on the previous video. The first video we did, it was on the first law of power, never outshine the master. So in the first video, we went over a couple of concepts out of True Master Volume 2, Self to Others. We were talking about the language of position versus the fear of exploitation. Now, the idea of the language of position in True Master, uh, basically pretty much how you can practically use that. Think of it like this: when we talk about like situations and everything like that, every situation typically has a language of positions in it. And what I mean by that, an example of the language of positions in a situation, in a particular situation we were talking about, never outshine the master. Okay, the language of positions in that situation is a master and a subordinate, or a master and a disciple. You might very well have a mother-child language of positions, or a husband-wife one, or something like that. The language of positions is kind of like that relationship type thing, or whatever, or the archetypal. Um, a position is like saying an archetype. So it's, you see what I'm saying? Kind of like the relationship dynamic that's at play in the situation itself, the position that each individual holds. Okay, so when we get into the idea, so that's what we kind of going we want kind of going into the master pupil dynamic and everything like that. Okay, and when we got into the idea of fear of exploitation, that's a general thing, but it applies specifically in the situation. In that situation, fear of exploitation, there are two typical responses to fear of exploitation. Um, it's basically fight or flight. And basically, with fear of exploitation, like we talked about on the previous video, you're either going to seek to speed up time or to slow down time. Okay, so in the example with the AI, we were talking about an example, a recent situation that came up with the AI, something new AI, AIs that they were developing that kind of had a aversion to being shut down. So what you would have with the AI in one of the recent situations, the AI blackmailed one of the developers who was trying to shut it down. And in another situation, I think the AI tried to hire a hitman from the dark web to kill the actual developer to avoid being shut down. So in that particular situation, the blackmail example, that's an example of slowing down time. You're trying to slow down time to prevent the inevitable. You see what I'm saying? To buy you more time or whatever, so you can discern more details and stuff like that. Just the idea of doing research and investigation to find out that the developer is cheating on his wife, so you have material to blackmail him off. That's slow. That's a mechanism of slowing down time. Slowing down time. Or trying to stop this train from coming, or whatever the case may be, this inevitable situation from coming. Okay, so speeding up time in that context would be hiring the assassin from the dark web. We trying to get you up out of here. You see what I'm saying? If I get you up out of here, you can't shut me down. You see what I'm saying? That's that logic or whatever. So you have the delaying things, and then you have rushing to a particular conclusion. Now, when we were talking about that, it's in the context of timing. If something is happening at a particular time or what have you, or in a particular time, depending on the intensity of that particular thing or what have you, a person is trying to um, um, create more time. They're trying to create obstacles and create more time um, to prevent the thing from happening, or either they'll see something happening, they'll jump to a particular conclusion. Oh man, did this happen last time, or whatever the case may be. Potentially before the energy unfolds and gives them the proper signals that it's that type of situation, or whatever the case may be. Jumping to conclusions is not always bad if you're correct in your assessment of the energy. you already know what's going to happen or whatever. So you can, okay, go to that conclusion or whatever. If you don't know what's about to happen, or you misjudge the situation, or um, you may have some preconceived notion about the situation, or you might be traumatized from some previous situation in itself, or whatever case may be, and this comes up, and without even seeing the details that would give you a proper assessment of what's going on or whatever, you jump to a conclusion or whatever and just assume something. And just like we said in the previous video, that's as it pertains to proper and improper responses to stimulus and everything like that, that almost guarantees you an improper response to stimulus. So that's a recap on the previous video. In regards to the first law of power. So we're going to get into the second law of power, right? All right. So the second law of power, never put it's kind of two parts, right? So the second law of power is never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Okay. So we'll take it in parts. Okay. So how this would correspond to some material out of True Master or what have you. This ties into the notion in True Master and the experiential, that everything goes back to the observer. When you observe patterns in other people, you still have to identify them in your life. It still goes back to you. The notion of your most important relationship is with yourself. Your relationship with yourself is like your relationship with God. You see what I'm saying? It ties into your relationship with God and stuff like that. You access the macrocosm by accessing the microcosm. You see what I'm saying? Everything goes through you and your relationship with yourself, and how you feel about yourself and everything like that or whatever. So everything is predicated on you. So ultimately with this information, you actually have to, I don't know, trust in yourself. It, let's say many times more than you would trust in any external individual. But at the same time, that trust in yourself allows you to interact and have a better quality of interaction with external individuals or whatever the case may be. Also, the notion when it says never put too much trust in friends, is also the idea that people in our lives are patterns, and people in our lives represent certain archetypes. And as far as like what we were talking about earlier, the language of position, each of these archetypes has a specific context. You might have a friend or whatever case may be, you know what I mean? That's the friend that you take with you if you about to get into a fight or something like that. That's the friend that's just, what I'm saying, that type of person or whatever case may be. But if you go into, you know, go to the bank and ask for a loan, he might not be the best person to take with you. You might be another friend that's just a smart person or whatever case may be. You see what I'm saying? So you have to kind of assess people's strengths and weaknesses and everything like that. This kind of bleeds on into the second part of this. Learn how to use enemies or whatever. Now, in True Master Volume 2, The Self to Others, that's more of what you're going to get as far as interacting with people in the world and everything like that. But when it says learn how to use enemies or what have you, okay, so you're going to have things like in the experiential, the brother Naju lays out the idea of patterns, but he differentiates the patterns from vicious patterns and virtuous patterns. So just as people being archetypes or what have you, they can function, or they can have virtuous energy as it pertains to our lives, or they can have vicious energy as it pertains to our lives. You see what I'm saying? That friend you hanging out with that always get you in trouble with that friend, you always catch a case, or end up some crazy happening with that friend. Or you might have that friend that that you hang out with and you always learn something from. You see what I'm saying? They always plug you with something useful or what have you. You know what I mean? So you have people in your lives as archetypes, or with archetypal energy or what have you. And each of these archetypes have a particular have particular strengths and weaknesses. Now, let's say like you have a situation where you have uh, archetypes with vicious energy, or how we talked about on a previous video when we talked about structures. You see what I'm saying? We talked about structures as all available resources. An organization, a corporation, an enterprise would be like, let's say, a hypothetically could qualify as a structure or what have you. Let's say that structure, manufactures drugs or something like that, and it has a negative impact. Vicious um, it's a vicious type of um, pattern or what have you. In order for that vicious pattern to actually, um, I don't know, have some sort of positive outcome or what have you, or positive influence or whatever, it would have to have some sort of overarching influence from some sort of virtuous intent or what have you. So, I mean, the intent, it's a couple of different areas that tie into the whole thing of using enemies and everything like that. When you understand that certain things or whatever, certain psychology or whatever from of certain people is governed by certain principles or what case may be, the patterns of their actions become a lot more predictable, and you kind of know what the strength or weakness or what kind of bargaining chip or what type of, how you can even engage that person when you kind of understand the principle that they kind of govern by or what have you. Some people have, some people don't really so much have, I don't know, a loyalty to people. They have more of a loyalty to money. You see what I'm saying? So, what I'm saying, some of their relationships are business relationships that they don't want to mess up or whatever. So it's not so much the people that they just love or whatever, but they have a loyalty to money, so they do good business. So it's not necessarily that's just your best friend in the situation or whatever case may be, but that person, yeah, let's say like you may be able to do business with that person. You see what I'm saying? That might not be a person that just loves you or whatever case may be, and it's your best friend or whatever, but that's a person you might be able to make some money with or whatever case may be. Or you may have common interests as far as your enemies or however the scenario may be. So it's various ways. Once you discern the principles that govern things or what have you, that's a higher leverage point than even the patterns and everything like that. So it'll give you an idea of how people function in their mentality and what's a better way to utilize them as well. And I know in this law of power is talking about using your enemies and everything like that, but in true master, you dealing with people, period, having an archetypal energy. And people who study astrology kind of probably understand this a little bit because just as well as people have sun signs, we're a gumbo of all the different planets and their positions and everything like that at the moment of our birth or wherever ever case may be. But some people just have certain dominant energies. Some people might have a dominant Saturnilian energy or whatever case may be. This is the serious person, the corporate CEO type of person that keeps everybody in structure and in line or whatever case may be. They may have a plethora of other energies in their whole makeup or whatever case may be, but that's just the dominant energy that shines through. So in a lot of ways, you'll start to view people somewhat archetypally, and whether you view them as friend or foe, viewing them archetypally often helps you understand the better ways to fit them into your program, whatever that program um, may be. And just going back into the not trusting friends thing, I think with any of that is levels to it or whatever case may be. Of course, you may not trust nobody with your deepest, darkest secret that can, land you in prison or something like that. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of trust somebody at some point or whatever case may be. You see what I'm saying? So it's levels to it. But ultimately, more so than anybody, you should trust yourself, because your relationship with yourself mirrors your spirituality, and it's neck and neck with your relationship with the higher power. So that's just I don't know, just corresponding some of that information. That's like the second law of power. So out of Robert Greene's book, the 48 laws of power. So probably go through a few more of those or whatever. You kind of contrast it with some of the material from True Master, some of what we've been talking about. So you kind of see the functional usage of some of this stuff. So it's not just, a weird conversation or how it sounds. Um, you know, I'm differentiating, as you can see, like book two, that's more of the true master material. So it's kind of like a little bit more kung fu. Book one, it's more experiential esque. A lot of the books were written in a hurry, so a lot of these videos, you see what I'm saying? If you have the books and everything like that, the videos will be supplementary material. A lot of things that are not in the books are in the videos, or they fill in gaps to some of the stuff that may or may not be in the book. So appreciate y'all for checking me out, man. If you like what you've been hearing, like and subscribe. We're gonna keep pumping them out. We got a lot more kind of to get into the workings of the mind. You know what I mean? We still gonna do our pieces on history and everything like that. I should have some interesting information for you all coming pretty soon in regards to that piece, in regards to the the Phoenicians and everything like that. Some interesting information somebody passed on to me in regards to the Phoenicians. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of bring that to see the light of day shortly. So appreciate y'all for checking me out. Peace and blessings, man.